On a vibrant, rhythmic morning at JFK International Airport, rich people were dragging suitcases back and forth, loudspeaker announcements rang out in the free space of their trips. In her elegant uniform, Olivia walked quickly through the gate area, her graceful kiss not slowing down despite the bustling pace of the new day. The navy blue blazer accentuated her elegant style, while the sparkling gold badge on the shirt reflected the bright light from the airport's vast glass windows. Olivia had dedicated over a decade to the airline industry, starting as a flight attendant and steadily climbing the ranks until she became the company's CEO. Though her executive role kept her behind the scenes, she cherished the rare occasions when she could slip back into her old uniform, reconnect with passengers and work alongside her crew. Today was one of those special days. "Have you seen that flight attendant? How enthusiastic." One person nodded and looked at Olivia with a look of disdain. "Probably trying to get a bigger tip than expected." Another person laughed, full of sarcasm. "Did you see that flight attendant? So eager to please," one of them sneered, nodding toward Olivia. "Must be desperate for tips," another chuckled. Olivia overheard the remarks but remained unfazed. Years of experience had taught her that dignity wasn't in words, it was in how one responded to them. For her, the priority was ensuring that every passenger had a safe and comfortable journey. Soon after, the group boarded the flight, their entitled attitudes on full display as they waved off instructions from the cabin crew and demanded immediate attention. As the lead flight attendant for the day, Olivia kept a watchful eye on them, determined to ensure their behavior wouldn't disrupt the experience of others. Inside the aircraft, the arrogance of the wealthy passengers escalated. One of them, exuding entitlement, snapped his fingers at a young flight attendant who was serving drinks. "Hey, get your supervisor over here. I need more ice for my champagne," he said dismissively. Olivia stepped in, calm yet firm. "Sir, is there anything I can assist you with?" The man looked her up and down, his lip curling in disdain. "Yeah, get me someone who actually speaks proper English," he sneered, laughing along with his friends. The young flight attendant behind Olivia looked flustered, but Olivia gently placed a reassuring hand on her arm before turning back to the man. "Of course, sir," she replied smoothly, her composure unwavering. "I'll take care of that for you right away." As she walked away to fetch the ice, she overheard one of the passengers mutter, "What do you expect from a flight attendant? They're just here to serve." Olivia clenched her jaw but kept moving. She refused to let their petty words affect her. What they didn't know was that this was far from an ordinary flight, and they were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. The plane soared gently through the clouds, its engines humming softly. Most passengers had settled into their seats, enjoying their meals or scrolling through their devices. But the group in business class seemed determined to make their presence known. One of the men, his expensive watch gleaming under the cabin lights, leaned back in his seat with a smug grin. "Hey, stewardess," he called out loudly, snapping his fingers once again, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. A few nearby passengers exchanged uneasy glances. Olivia approached, maintaining her signature calm. The arrogance escalates. Olivia was carrying out her duties when a sharp snap of fingers echoed through the business class cabin, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. "Hey, get your manager over here. I need more ice in my champagne," one of the wealthy passengers demanded, barely glancing at the young flight attendant serving drinks. His tone dripped with entitlement. Olivia stepped forward, her expression composed. "Sir, is there anything I can assist you with?" The man looked her up and down, curling his lip in disdain. "Yeah, get me someone who actually speaks proper English," he sneered, laughing as his companions joined in. The young flight attendant hesitated, clearly unsettled. Olivia gently placed a reassuring hand on her arm before turning back to the man. "Of course, sir," she replied smoothly, her voice unwavering. "I'll take care of that for you right away." As she walked away to fetch the ice, she overheard one of the passengers mutter, "What do you expect from a flight attendant? They're just here to serve." Olivia clenched her jaw but kept walking, refusing to let their words shake her. What they didn't know was that this flight would not go as they expected. A lesson was about to unfold, one they would never forget. An unexpected turn. The plane cruised steadily above the clouds, the engines humming softly. Most passengers had settled into their seats, enjoying their meals or scrolling through their devices. But the group in business class had no intention of quieting down. One of the men, his expensive watch glinting under the cabin lights, leaned back in his seat with a smirk. "Hey, stewardess," he called out, snapping his fingers again, slicing through the calm cabin atmosphere. Olivia approached, still composed. The man gestured dismissively at his meal tray. "This chicken is dry." Do you have anything better, or is this the best you people can manage? The phrase you people hung in the air like an insult, sharp and deliberate. Olivia's expression remained neutral, though a passenger seated nearby frowned at the remark. I'm sorry to hear that, sir, Olivia said, her voice steady. Let me see what I can do to improve your meal experience. A woman in the group, draped in designer clothing, leaned back in her seat with a dramatic sigh. Can you tell whoever designed this plane to make better seats? They're not as luxurious as I expected, she said, then paused, her lips curling into a smirk. Oh wait, do you even understand what I'm saying, dear? Laughter erupted from her companions as if she had just delivered the wittiest joke of the evening. Olivia didn't react. She stood tall, her hands clasped neatly in front of her. I assure you, ma'am, we take all passenger feedback seriously, Olivia replied, her tone polite but unwavering. Is there anything else you'd like assistance with? The woman rolled her eyes, waving a dismissive hand. Just don't mess up my order like last time. Olivia nodded and turned to fulfill their requests. But even as she walked away, their mocking whispers continued behind her. Why do they even hire these people? One of the men scoffed. Probably cheap labor, another added with a chuckle. The moment everything changed. Olivia stepped into the galley, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She had encountered rude passengers before, but something about their arrogance and complete disregard for others struck a deeper chord this time. Still, she reminded herself of an important lesson she had learned early in her career. Composure is power. Are you okay, Olivia? A junior flight attendant asked hesitantly. Olivia smiled reassuringly. I'm fine. Let's focus on making sure all our passengers are well taken care of. But she had no idea that the most important lesson of this flight wouldn't come from her, but from fate itself. Barely 10 minutes later, a loud thud echoed through the business class cabin. Thump. One of the men in the group, the one with the flashy watch, suddenly collapsed in the aisle. Somebody help, one of his companions screamed, his voice shaking. He's not breathing. The once peaceful cabin erupted into chaos. Nearby passengers turned in alarm, craning their necks to see what had happened. The flight crew immediately sprang into action, but Olivia was the fastest to react. She knelt beside the man, her voice calm but authoritative. Sir, can you hear me? She asked, gently tapping his shoulder. The man's face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Do something. Don't just stand there, one of his friends shouted, his earlier arrogance replaced with sheer panic. Olivia ignored the outburst and swiftly assessed the situation. Years of training had prepared her for this exact moment. We need to call for medical assistance on board, she instructed a fellow flight attendant. Bring me the first aid kit. Then she turned to the group. Is he on any medication? Does he have any medical conditions we should know about? The group exchanged frantic glances, their confidence evaporating. I don't know, one of them stammered. He never mentioned anything like this before. The tension in the cabin thickened as Olivia worked quickly, her steady hands moving with precision. Passengers whispered among themselves, some astonished at how calm she remained despite the chaos. Moments later, an oxygen mask was placed over the man's face, and Olivia carefully adjusted the flow. Another flight attendant arrived with the first aid kit, but Olivia had already taken control of the situation. We need to keep him stable until we determine his condition, she said. Suddenly, a passenger from economy class stepped forward. I'm a doctor. Can I assist? Olivia looked up and nodded gratefully. Yes, please. The doctor knelt beside her, examining the unconscious man. After a few moments, he looked at Olivia with a mixture of respect and admiration. You've done everything right so far, he said. He's lucky to have someone so well trained on board. His words hit the group like a freight train. The same flight attendant they had mocked just moments ago might have just saved their friend's life. As the doctor and Olivia worked together to stabilize the man, the once tense cabin fell silent. The air, once filled with arrogance and entitlement, was now thick with newfound respect. Eventually, the man's condition stabilized. He was still pale, but his breathing had steadied. Olivia carefully arranged pillows to support his head. Thank you, one of his friends said, his voice trembling. The arrogance from earlier had vanished, replaced with humility. I don't know what we would have done without you. Olivia gave a small nod, her expression calm yet warm. It's my responsibility to ensure the safety of every passenger, she replied. As she stood and adjusted her uniform, she caught the eye of a nearby passenger who had witnessed everything. He gave her a subtle thumbs up. She responded with a faint smile. What the passengers didn't know was that the surprises of this flight weren't over just yet. A meaningful transformation. Olivia's words hung in the air, carrying a weight that was impossible to ignore. The woman they had ridiculed for her accent and demeanor wasn't just a flight attendant, she was the leader of the entire airline. For a long moment no one spoke. Then one of the men in the group finally broke the silence. "We had no idea," he muttered, still in shock. "I mean, you were so humble we never would have guessed." Olivia gave a faint smile. "There's no room for pride when it comes to serving others," she said gently. The group fell silent. Their earlier arrogance had vanished, replaced by a mix of embarrassment and respect. Around them, other passengers murmured to each other, but this time the conversations weren't filled with mockery. They were filled with admiration, for Olivia's humility, for her leadership, for the quiet strength she had displayed. "You've taught us a lot today," the woman in designer clothes admitted, her voice tinged with guilt. "We misjudged you and I'm truly sorry." Olivia nodded graciously. "Apologies are appreciated," she said. "But the real change happens when we learn from these moments. Respect isn't earned through rank or title, it's earned through action and kindness." She turned to continue her duties, but as she walked away she noticed something remarkable. The tension that had once divided the cabin had faded. The passengers, once separated by status and misunderstanding, now sat in quiet reflection. But the journey wasn't over yet, one final lesson was still to come. From arrogance to gratitude. The once entitled group of passengers now sat in stunned silence. The man who had collapsed was reclining in his seat, looking noticeably better, quietly thanking Olivia for saving his life. The woman in designer clothes, who had been the loudest of them all, shifted uncomfortably, staring down at the cabin floor. At last, one of the men let out a heavy sigh. "I can't believe we treated her like that," he murmured, shaking his head. "She's not just the CEO. She's the reason our friend is still alive." The woman exhaled slowly. "We've been so blind," she admitted. "All this time we thought status and money were everything. But she showed us what true leadership looks like." Another man chimed in, his voice heavy with guilt. "It's not just about leadership, it's about respect. We didn't even think to treat her like a human being." Their words were overheard by nearby passengers, who nodded in quiet agreement. An older man seated behind them leaned forward. "You know," he said softly, "it's never too late to learn a lesson in humility. She's given you a gift, one you shouldn't waste." The group exchanged glances, their faces flushed with shame. Finally, the woman in designer clothes stood up and walked toward the galley, where Olivia was preparing coffee for the crew. She hesitated for a moment, wringing her hands before clearing her throat. "Olivia," she began, her voice trembling slightly. Olivia turned, her expression calm but curious. "Yes, ma'am? How can I help you?" I just wanted to apologize," the woman said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "We were rude, dismissive, and downright awful to you. And despite all of that, you still saved our friend's life and treated us with kindness. I'm so sorry for how we acted." Olivia studied her for a moment, then offered a kind smile. "Thank you for saying that," she replied. "It's not easy to admit when we've made mistakes, but the important thing is what we learn from them." One by one the rest of the group approached, nodding in agreement, each of them offering their own apologies. Olivia listened patiently, her demeanor as gracious as ever. "I appreciate your words," she said. "But remember, it's not about me. It's about how we treat each other as human beings. Everyone deserves respect, regardless of their role or background." The group nodded solemnly, her words striking a chord. As they returned to their seats, their attitudes had noticeably changed. They thanked the crew members who passed by, smiled politely at fellow passengers, and even struck up a friendly conversation with the doctor who had assisted earlier. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. Other passengers watched with quiet admiration, acknowledging how much had changed in just a few short hours. Meanwhile, Olivia continued her duties, her professionalism unchanged. But deep down, she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, not because she had revealed her title, but because the lesson she had hoped to impart had truly resonated. A lasting impact. As the plane began its descent, the hum of the engines filled the cabin. Outside, the skyline of their destination city came into view. Passengers fastened their seat belts and tidied up their trays, but in business class, the atmosphere was distinctly different from how it had been at the start of the flight. The once smug group of wealthy passengers now sat quietly, their expressions reflecting humility and introspection. The woman in designer clothes turned to her companions, her voice low but resolute. "I think we owe her more than just an apology," she said seriously. One of the men nodded. "I agree. She didn't have to treat us with such kindness after the way we acted, but she did. That's real class. The group huddled together, whispering as they tried to come up with a plan. Their transformation wasn't just surface level anymore, it was genuine. As the plane touched down smoothly on the runway, the captain's voice came over the intercom, thanking the passengers for flying with the airline. Applause filled the cabin, a common tradition after a successful landing. But in business class, the claps carried extra weight. They weren't just for the flight crew, they were for someone specific. As Olivia walked through the aisle, checking on passengers one last time before disembarkation, she stopped in her tracks when she saw the group standing and waiting for her. The woman in designer clothes stepped forward, holding a small envelope in her hand. "Olivia," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "Before we leave, we just want to thank you again. Not just for saving our friend, but for teaching us something we'll never forget." She handed Olivia the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note, carefully crafted, expressing their gratitude and acknowledging their mistakes. Along with it was a receipt for a significant donation they had made to a charity supporting aviation workers. Olivia opened the card and read it quietly. A soft smile spread across her face, and for a moment she said nothing. Then she looked up at the group, her eyes warm. "Thank you," she said simply. "Not just for the gesture, but for truly taking this experience to heart. It means more than you know." The group nodded, their expressions a mix of relief and gratitude. One of the men stepped forward. "You've shown us that leadership isn't about titles or power, it's about how you treat people. That's a lesson we'll carry with us." Around them, other passengers watched the exchange with admiration. Some even approached Olivia to personally thank her for her service and composure during the flight. The atmosphere in the cabin had completely shifted, leaving behind a sense of unity and shared humanity. Passengers began to disembark. Olivia stood at the door with her usual warm smile, bidding everyone goodbye. But this time the thank yous she received felt different. They were genuine, heartfelt, and filled with respect. As the wealthy travelers reached the exit, they paused. The man who had collapsed extended his hand, his face sincere. "Thank you again, Olivia," he said softly. "You didn't just save my life, you opened our eyes to what really matters." Olivia shook his hand warmly. "Take care of yourself," she replied. "And remember, every day is an opportunity to treat others with kindness." As they stepped off the plane, a young boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, she's like a superhero," he whispered, staring at Olivia in awe. Olivia chuckled softly, her heart warmed by the comment. She hadn't needed recognition or applause. For her, the true reward came in moments like these, where kindness and understanding could leave a lasting impact. And as she walked through the terminal, passengers from the flight waved or nodded in acknowledgement. One even stopped her and said, "Thank you for reminding us what true leadership looks like." Olivia smiled and continued on her way, her heart light. As Olivia walked through the terminal, a quiet sense of fulfillment settled in her heart. She hadn't just completed a flight, she had witnessed a transformation, one that proved kindness and humility could change even the most stubborn hearts. But as she glanced at her phone, a new message flashed on the screen. "Urgent meeting upon arrival. Situation developing." She exhaled softly, tucking the phone away. The skies had cleared for now, but another storm was waiting on the horizon. What challenges lie ahead for Olivia? Stay tuned for part 2.